Hi there everyone, my name's Wayne, I'm the Armchair Red and welcome to my channel. So it's the day after the big game, Liverpool versus Manchester City at Anfield, the final showdown between Klopp and Pep in their epic rivalry in the Premier League. Almost like a superhero movie where the hero faces down with his arch nemesis to define who's the superior being. The game itself was incredible. We had sneaky goals, we had penalties, we had angry substitutions, we had missed chances, and we had big calls in the game. Going into the game as a Liverpool supporter, I was very confident. We had a lot of players back. I thought Klopp was going to field a Klopp team for the game. Mohamed Salah was fit. Dominic Szoboszlai was back. Darwin Núñez was on fire in front. But then when the team sheets were announced, I became a little bit nervous. Salah was on the bench. Robertson was on the bench. And taking on a full-strength City team, I really started thinking to myself, you know what, if we get out with a draw today, I really can't complain. But as the game went on, it was effectively a game of two halves. City, I suppose, were marginally the better team in the first half, but in the second half, Liverpool absolutely took over. They got their penalty, McAllister scoring the penalty, and to be fair, Luis Diaz probably should have had at least one goal in the game. So, retrospectively, City were probably there for the taking, and Liverpool never took their chances. So, a fair result at the end of the day, I suppose, not taking the big incidents into account. But if we're going to talk about the big incidents, let's talk about the big incidents. So the big talking point after the game was Jeremy Doku's challenge on Alexi McAllister in the final minute of the game in the penalty area. Now, for me, that's a stonewall penalty. If that happens anywhere else on the field, it's a free kick and probably a yellow card. So the question I ask then is, why is that not the case when it happens in the box in the last minute against Manchester City? So I've looked at a lot of commentary, I've looked at a lot of pundits after the game, particularly the pundits last night straight after the game that were standing on the field, and a lot of them were saying, well, you know what, it's such a big game. A game can't be decided on decisions like that. It's Liverpool versus City. Come on, guys, that's bullshit. Are you telling me that if Liverpool were playing Sheffield United and that happened to McAllister in the last minute, it wouldn't be a penalty? We can't decide what result we want in the game because of how big the game is. The fact is, McAllister was fouled in the box and it should have been a penalty. The other statement that was made last night was, well, Michael Oliver didn't want to make the call because of how big the game was. He didn't want his decision to ultimately define the result of the game. But let's face it, his decision ultimately between him and VAR have defined the result of the game. And also, if you don't have the balls as a referee to make a call in a game like this, you probably shouldn't be reffing the game. That's the bottom line. We pick experienced referees for big games like this for them to be able to make the big calls. And if you fluff your lines and you don't make the call that's supposed to be made, you haven't done your job. It basically boils down to that. So just on that topic now, and the topic of this video is, could VAR potentially decide this year's title race? Many people might say it's already decided this year's title race. Now, I'm going to make some observations in here. I know I'm a Liverpool supporter. I'm going to make some observations here, but it's going to be across teams because I feel the failure of VAR to do what VAR is supposed to do has affected more than just Liverpool this season. Yes, we've copped quite a lot of the bad calls, the calls that have made newspaper headlines the next day. But the fact is, there's been many big calls this season that could effectively change the course of the title at the end of the season. I'm going to focus on Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City when I look at the teams. So let's look at Liverpool. So there's this game. I've spoken about the decision in length. I feel it should have been a penalty. I feel they fluffed their lines. I feel VAR didn't do what VAR was supposed to do. The days of saying, well, he got to the ball first are long gone. You cannot obliterate a player just because you got to the ball first. It's reckless, it's out of control, and it should have been a penalty. The other big call, or another big call that's affected Liverpool this season, is no one will forget the Spurs game. Luis Diaz onside, scoring a goal, VAR making a mistake and acknowledging an offside on the field when in fact he was onside, to the point where they came out after the game and apologized to Liverpool because they had cocked it up. Liverpool ended up losing that game. We don't know what would have happened in the game if Luis Diaz's goal had counted, but the fact is the final score was 2-1, and if that goal counts, it's at least a 2-2 scoreline, and that should be an additional point for Liverpool this season. Another incident I'd like to point out is Liverpool versus Arsenal at Anfield. Salah in the box, one-on-one with Martin Odegaard, and he basically plays shuffle ball with the ball in the penalty area with his hand, like he's playing marbles, and the referee doesn't give a penalty. To me, my mind still boggles as to why that wasn't given. There were no mistakes from VAR or anything there. In fact, it is a VAR mistake because he should have overruled the ref. But those are three big calls alone that I can think that VAR have influenced outcomes of the game. If that penalty is given, look, there's no guarantee Salah would have scored. But I mean, that game ended 1-1. Liverpool should potentially have won that game. So that's another 2 points that Liverpool could have picked up. Let's get to some of the other teams in the title race. So Arsenal. As much as I dislike Arsenal, their game against Newcastle at the start of the season was basically decided by a dodgy goal. So there was a lot of debate in terms of whether the ball was over the line as well, in terms of the cross that came into the box. But once the cross came into the box, the Newcastle defender basically manhandled William Saliba, and Anthony Gordon ended up scoring. How the referee didn't see the foul on Saliba is beyond me. Look, I was glad at the time the result turned out but like it did. But for me, the conversation I'm having today is around the principle of it. I don't care who you support. We need VAR to be working. We need VAR to be credible. We can't be coming out of games after an incredible game like we had yesterday and the topic of conversation is VAR. That tells me there's something wrong in the game. Let's go to Man City. At the start of the season, Man City played Wolves. Man City's winner was scored with the Manchester City player offside in direct line of sight of the goalkeeper, and the goal should have been disallowed. But the goal was allowed. City ended up winning the game. I'm not saying they would have not gone on and scored again after that, but ultimately they ended up winning the game by 1 goal, and that winning goal shouldn't have stood. So, in probably the closest title battle in recent memory, 3 teams separated by 1 point at the top of the table, we are talking margins of 1 and 2 points in games here, where VAR has actually cost teams points. And let me say this, the PGMOL honestly must be hoping that Man City win this title this season by 4 or 5 points. Because if it gets to the end of the season and Man City win the title by 1 point ahead of Liverpool or 1 point against Arsenal, there are going to be serious questions asked. Because these decisions, and some of them admittedly after the game were blatant errors, have cost teams points and could potentially cost teams titles. Now, to go to the extremes, if that had to happen, imagine litigation in a case like that. You know, Arsenal or Liverpool actually going to court over the fact that they were robbed of points in a game that ultimately cost them the title. The difference between coming first and second, no one remembers who came second. It's all about being the champion at the end of the season. But we must also not forget that there's money involved here. Every position in the Premier League has a different monetary prize towards it. The difference between positions at the top of the table is a lot of money. And to have potentially a title decided because a fundamental part of the game, which is VAR, is as significantly flawed as it is, would be a travesty of justice. I needed to have my say today. I felt aggrieved after the Liverpool game. But then I also thought to myself, you know what? This is not a Liverpool thing. This is a Premier League thing. The integrity of the Premier League is brought into question when individuals outside of the 22 players on the field can dictate the outcome of a game through either incompetence or just plain stupidity. And that to me is a massive concern. I hope it's the last we've seen of it this season. There's still some big games to come up. There's still 10 games to go before the end of the season. But the damage might have already been done. And like I say, if City win this league, they're going to have to win it by 4 or 5 points. Because if they don't, there are going to be serious questions asked. Let me know what your thoughts are on this topic. I know people get very emotive when they speak about VAR. You either pro VAR or you're not. And what I ask is, let's put our club allegiances aside. This is bigger than club allegiance. This is the beautiful game itself that is being brought into disrepute. And let's take those club hats off and let's call it for what it truly is. It's incompetence that could potentially change the title race. If it's your first time watching my channel, I really appreciate it, first of all. I'd also appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. I'm going on a bit of a journey on this channel. I truly enjoy what I'm doing. And if you smash that subscribe button, it would really make my day. Drop a comment if you agree with what I said. If there's any incidents I potentially missed out, please highlight them for me. I was trying to rack my brain today. I know there's a few smaller ones I potentially did miss out. But the fact is, no matter how big or small a decision is, if it's wrong, it's wrong. So let me know in the comments if I've missed anything out. But ultimately, everyone, that's my say for today. You must all look after yourselves. Armchair Red, out.